All right, guys, in today's video, we are looking at Vipers, the fighters from Battlestar Galactica. Now, these were some models put out by Mobius Models in, well, about 10 years ago, kind of 2010, 2017 or so. These Viper model kits were plentiful and inexpensive. And that is not the case anymore. But, you know, back in the day, I really think I was picking up these 1/32 scale Vipers for about $25, certainly less than $30. In addition to these 32nd scale ships, they also had 1/72 scale kits. And because these models were so small, they would give you 2 of them in a pack. There was also Cylon Raiders, along with, of course, the actual Battle Stars, but I always leaned a little bit more towards the fighters myself. So here's a collection of Vipers that I built back when these kits were plentiful. And you know what? I loved building these Vipers. These are absolutely fantastic subjects to build. Very, very fun. Now, of course, these are out of production now. They were made by Mobius Models, who put out quite a few different sci-fi kits in the 2000s. And unfortunately, they you know, I don't want to get into it too much because I don't know all the facts, but, you know, they kind of went out of business. Now, when that happened, you know, I didn't buy up as many of these kits as I could have, and I really should have, because they were just absolutely fantastic. But, you know, I foolishly thought somebody else would come along and buy those molds and keep putting these kits out, and that never happened. My understanding, because Revell across the Atlantic, Revell of Germany also shared some of these molds and produced some of these Vipers for the European market. I thought for sure Revell would keep producing them for Europe, or Round 2 might buy them for America, but I didn't think they would leave the market entirely. It turns out that NBC Universal has no interest in licensing Battlestar Galactica products to anyone right now. They simply don't do it. You can't really find Battlestar merchandise for anything anymore, and that just absolutely drives me nuts. It means that these Viper kits are routinely $100 on eBay, and it means the actual Battlestars themselves go for $200, $250 on eBay. They are hard to track down. All right, let's take a look at some of these Vipers. This is the little one that came in a pack of 2, a 1/72 scale Viper. And let's see if we can zoom in to see some of this detail, because of course there is a pilot figure within that canopy. Nice decals, nice detailing for those little machine bays there. A nice little decal there for our squadron, I believe. A little registry there. Some overspray from my paint job. It's a very little kit. Machinery back here on these engine bays, but very, very nice kits, and optional landing legs. Little slot there for the stand, but a very nice representation of the Mark II Viper. Now, of course, that's from the rebooted show, and it was kind of their homage to the original Vipers. It's nice to have it in 1/72 scale, because then you can kind of compare it with Star Wars ships. You can see not too far off on the cockpits. The Y-wing, of course, was a double-seater, so that scale fits. But of course, the Vipers were pretty much, you strapped a seat to a couple engines and guns, and you called it a ship. It was all business, very maneuverable, very fast, very short distance fighters. So that's Star Wars versus Battlestar Galactica there. Of course, that is a Viper versus a TIE fighter, but very much in scale for other single fighter ships. But what was really fun in this product line were these big Vipers, these 1/32 scale ships. And this is the Mark II, which was from the rebooted Battlestar Galactica. This is what they retroactively call the Mark I. It was from the original Battlestar Galactica. So kind of this would, in the revised continuity, this would kind of be a Mark I. This is a Mark II, but both very similar ships. Now, what I really like about these two in particular is it really is the same subject, just tackled decades apart, about over 20 years. Kind of how you would produce something in the 1970s versus the 2000s, and kind of the design choices. So this one, I did it a lot more tan than white, just kind of get that 70s aesthetic, more orange than red, but all in all, you can see a lot of the same features in the two designs. This one, hopefully you can see that pilot done more in browns and coppers, an exposed face. But you know, this one, no real paint chipping. I did make it dirty. I did do panel lines. It is supposed to be a fighter, of course, so smudging and soot here by those cowls for the engines. You know, kind of blue back here for the engines. Surprised I didn't do much of a wash back here to kind of bring it out. But this one, honestly, very clean paint job, and then pastels and chalks for the weathering to kind of give it that used look. This one, all of these came with the option of either having landing gear or having it in flight. This one I chose to have done with its landing gear. The stands are wobbly. That is, if there's a flaw to these kits, it's the wobbly stand. But this is how this ship would be kind of designed in the 2000s, and I took a different weathering approach here. So here you can see I did do a lot of chipping. We did a silver base coat here from metal underneath the paint. You can see that there are places where the white paint is chipped off to reveal that silver. You can see parts where the red insignias and paint is chipped off to show both white paint underneath and kind of the silver paint underneath. You can see a lot of chipping there by those engines, a lot of chipping along the front of the wings. Now, what I really liked about these model kits, they were big enough to really have some fun. And not just in the paint jobs and the weathering, you can have fun with some of the lighting. So down here, behind this landing gear door, I put a battery, and behind this one, an on-off switch. And now we have a ship with some lit up engines. I think I drilled those little bits out, and I think I put a clear epoxy on it, or maybe I just left it with a clear plastic, but kind of some really cool lighting there for those engines. You can also see I did fiber optics just to give some lights on those control panels. But so this is really a ship I could whoosh around, you know, fully contained, no wires, no needing to be plugged in, just a little 12-volt battery inside that nose cone. Fiber optics for the control panels, light here. And it just, you know, it's fun. It's a fantastic size where you could do things like that. So that is my Mark II. Now, of course, in Battlestar Galactica, they had a much updated version. This is the Viper Mark VII. That's what I still have fresh in a box. And you'll notice just a lot of similarities on this line. Another pilot there in the cockpit. I think all of mine are Starbucks. Here you can see more of that chipping and weathering. This, I believe we call it Pontiac blue. It's really the same blue I use on my Voyager, on my TIE fighters. I call it sci-fi blue. It's a very nice color. You can see a lot of panel lining there with just a black wash to bring out those details. Nice decals. And just like my Mark II, we have some batteries that you can hide inside of it, so we can have those lit engines. You can see there fiber optics lighting up those control panels. And I really went for it on this one. I put fiber optics. I drilled out the front of that laser, and I put a fiber optic point in each of those guns. Now this one, I guess that broke someplace within the model, or else we would have had a third little point of light there. I doubt anybody sees that unless I point it out to them, but you know, it was fun to do. So that is a Viper Mark VII, and a very, very fun kit with the gunmetal accenting back here on the engines. all these little thrusters. I think these thrusters are molded in on this one. And I believe all those little thrusters are just decals on the Mark II. But as you can see, there is so much you can do with these Vipers. It was very, very easy to have a full flight of these. If you really want to have a ton, you could definitely do the little ones. But just having a multitude of Vipers was a very fun thing to do. They weren't overly complicated, so you could build them quickly, but it was very easy to make them look good and special. You know, making this video is really making me think I should go buy a couple $100 worth of the Bandai 1/72 scale X-Wings while they're still in production. You know, it's just great to have those little fighters to work on every once in a while, and it kills me these are out of production. All right, now that we've seen kind of what these Viper kits are all about when they are built and completed, let's open up the Viper Mark VII, because I will be building this. It will be probably my final Battlestar Galactica Viper build ever. So it's something I'm really going to treasure and enjoy as I build. All right, we've got the plastic off. You can see a very nicely illustrated Viper Mark VII across the top of the box, Battlestar Galactica on the sides. Along the back, some advertisements for other models available. Couple nice callouts here. Model is about a foot long, 1/32 scale, pilot figure, display stand, and decals. All right, our first sprue is our clear canopy and our display stand, our wobbly display stand. Our next bag has the top and the bottom of the fuselage. So of course you can see plenty of room inside there to put LEDs or battery compartments. Pretty nicely engraved lines that hold a wash very well. Our next bag has two sprues. These are mostly things like the fins, engine halves. And once again, pretty simple on detail, but you don't need much on this model. Just nicely engraved panel lines. The next sprue has the other engine parts, and it has our cockpit interior. And our last bag has three sprues. Let's look at our pilots. You do get an option to make a male or a female pilot. So there are our legs. Nice detail there. Looks like our pilot's carrying a sidearm. The arms are done separately. And it looks like from the get-go, our pilot is holding our throttle controls. There's the two chest options. And up on top of the sprue is our helmeted pilot head. Next up, we have our seats for the cockpit. Looks like we have our landing gear legs. I think this might be the back of the cockpit. And I'm not sure where these long pipes go. Luckily, I have the model here, so it looks like those long pipes go along the outside of the engine. And our last sprue has things like the bay doors for the landing gear, some more landing gear. There's our cockpit seat. I believe these are more throttles. And these are our cannons. So the parts, looking at them on the sprue, they do look pretty simple construction, but obviously you can see they build up into a very nice model. All right, here is our decal sheet. So first up, you get some insignias here for the fleet. Then you do get to specify whether your Viper is from the Galactica or the Pegasus. You got several different names here from the show. You get the kill indicators for how many Cylons you've shot down. A couple different registries depending on which Battlestar you're from. And a couple warning labels. So not too much as far as decals, but a very nice selection to finish up the model. Now this is something I always thought was really fun. Your instructions are done in full color, and they have the notched corners, because in the Battlestar Galactica universe, that's the way papers were. But very, very nice instructions, kind of taking you through every single step. These are probably some of the nicest model instructions that I have seen. There's our engine assembly. And finally, decal placement. And it will tell you how to label it if you're making a version from the Galactica or the one from Battlestar Pegasus. All right, and here is our paint guide. It looks like they give you 4 different options, all testers. So tester's color, tester model, master's enamel, tester's acrylic, or tester's enamel. And of course, a nice full color picture of how they'd like it to look. Theirs is definitely more gray rather than blue. All right, now this is the fun part of model making, because we will be going from this very basic beige, kind of plain looking piece of plastic to a wonderfully detailed ship. Now, frankly, I am happy with this version of a Canon in-universe Viper MkVII. I think I'm overall satisfied that I have a very nice pair of Vipers that I can claim for being from the rebooted Battlestar Galactica. So this Viper build is going to be kind of fun and kind of unique. I'm going to be doing something non-canon because over the past few years, whether I've debated breaking this out of the box and actually building it up, I have seen some very cool Vipers online. Two of them in particular. One from a guy named Troy on the Starship Modeler Facebook group. This has been a saved image I have held on to for about 5 years, and I love it. I think I may be copying his paint scheme. But I've also seen this one from Star Trek, and it is the Mark VII done in the Mark II colors. But back when these models were plentiful, people would do them in all sorts of different schemes. If you go out and Google Battlestar Galactica Viper USAF, United States Air Force, you'll see a ton of them done just as Air Force fighters with different insignias and colors. Back when they were plentiful, these model kits were ripe for possibilities. Well, there you have it. There is an unboxing and an overview for some very nice kits that are no longer available. I will throw a party if I ever hear that NBC Universal has decided to license Battlestar Galactica again and start letting people just make some money off this IP again. I'm sure these molds are out there with a model maker somewhere, and that person's just ready to get that license fee out there and start getting these models back on the market. I can promise you there's still a demand for Vipers if somebody were to take up that baton and start releasing them again. But I'm going to finalize my plans for this Viper MkVII. I'm going to pick a paint scheme, and we'll do a few videos on how I did these other two with those nicely lit engines, cockpits, and I don't know if I'll try this again. I'll see if I want to run any more fiber through those tiny cannons to do kind of lit little blasters there. But for me, this will be a very special project because it's a subject that I very much enjoyed building time and time again, and this will be my last Battlestar Galactica Viper build. So stay tuned to the channel for that build, and I'll be back soon.